This is the first and only Quaker cemetery established here in Michigan, and established by our founder, Mr. Arthur Power. Now, Arthur Power was a Quaker. Quakers are Christians that didn't have churches, and they didn't have priests or ministers. What they had were meeting houses. Now, they would hold meetings, and if the Lord moved you to speak during the meeting, then you talk. If the Lord didn't move you to speak, then you would sit in silence. Very often, the religious services held in meeting houses were long and quiet because of that. Now, Arthur Power was a Quaker that came from Farmington, New York. Because Quakers believed in the equality of all people, they believed that everyone should be educated. Men and women, there was no difference as far as equality is concerned between men and women. Arthur Power's mother was a businesswoman. She owned a business, and she gave her son, Arthur, $100. And he took that $100, which was a great deal of money back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. She gave him that money. He moved to Farmington, New York. And what he did, there are television programs on TV right now that is about turning or flipping houses. Well, he learned that lesson back in the early 1800s. He purchased property and he made a few improvements. He would clear the land or build a home on it or build a barn on it or whatever, and then sell it for a profit. He did that enough times, he accumulated a great deal of wealth. And he heard that there was a lot of land available in Michigan, specifically in Oakland County. Now, land back then in the 1800s sold for $1.25 an acre. He bought hundreds of acres, which means he had accumulated a great deal of money. And what he did was he doled out his property to his children. He kind of helped them get started, much like his mother got him started. In an agrarian society, the eldest son gets the family farm. So if you're son number 2 or son number 5 or son number 7, like Arthur was, you got nothing. So Arthur was given $100, and he was very successful in purchasing property. Now, being that he did that, he was a very benevolent person. He donated property to the community. This was one of his donations. Another donation that he made is called the Oakwood Cemetery, which is called a community cemetery. This is a Quaker cemetery, which you would assume would invite only Quakers to be buried here. That's not the case. If you're a friendly person, you can be buried in a Quaker cemetery. That's all you have to do, is be a friendly person. So if you're a friendly person, you could be buried here. Unfortunately, this property is now managed and supervised by the city of Farmington. And essentially, the cemetery is closed to those that would like to be buried here, with one exception. If you have a loved one that is buried here now, you could be buried here as well. Also, another tidbit of information, meeting houses were very prevalent in the Quaker community. Adjacent to the cemetery, where the colonial home now stands, was the site of the Quaker meeting house. The meeting house itself was not on this property, but just set off the property just a little bit. And that is the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard. A graveyard is a burial ground that is connected to some sort of house of worship. A cemetery has no house of worship typically connected to it, either physically or religiously. In the meantime, our founder, Arthur Power, is buried in this very site, which is very exciting for me and for others that live in the community and appreciate history. So what we're going to do is we'll start at the Arthur Power grave site, and we'll walk through the cemetery and talk about some of the people that are buried here, as well as to raise awareness in the community about what others from the community and outside of the community have done to enhance the historical aspects of our community. A descendant of Arthur Power, a man by the name of Phil Power. Phil Power owned the Observer and Eccentric newspapers. In fact, it was called Hometown Communications, and he owned that conglomerate of newspapers, and he established a foundation. When he sold the newspaper to Gannett, he then started a foundation. His family foundation funded the restoration and the rehab of this burial ground. Many of these grave sites and tombstones look brand new. That's because they were not only re-erected, some of them had fallen into the ground, others were repaired, and most of them were cleaned. And I watched the cleaning process myself. They used a nylon rotary brush on the end of a drill and water. So when you look at them, you can actually read them. So follow me. I always start the tour at this location. This is the tombstone of our founder, Arthur Power. 4 months ago, if you come here, this stone was very difficult to read because it was all gray, and because of acid rain, it showed its age and wear. On the back side of the tombstone, it says Arthur Power, first settler in this town, 1824. He actually came and visited the area to decide whether or not he was going to purchase property in 1823. So when you read the stone, it says 1823. He didn't establish this community until 1824. Arthur Power has brought many of his sons and his daughters to Michigan, and again, he donated property to his family as a means to get them established or started. This cemetery was established in 1832 by a woman. Her name is Celinda Payne. Now, Celinda actually was the daughter-in-law to Arthur Power, and she was married to one of Arthur's sons, Nathan Power. And Celinda and her 5-year-old daughter, Phoebe, died of cholera on the same day in 1832. Now, this is her tombstone, where both mother and daughter are buried in the same plot. There was not a graveyard here prior to Arthur Power establishing this as a graveyard with his daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Right here is Nathan Power. And Nathan Power was not the eldest son of Arthur, but Nathan kept a diary. And what was nice about the diary is that he basically told us the travels of his father. So we knew where Arthur Power came. When he came from Farmington, New York, we know what property he purchased and where he settled. Nathan Power himself was married twice. He was married to Celinda Payne, and he was married to Patience Comstock after Celinda passed away, along with his daughter. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to also discuss with you about tombstone symbols. There's a lot of symbols that are found on these grave markers. Most of these grave markers, by the way, are made out of either limestone or marble. Now, some of the newer stones are made out of granite, but we didn't have granite quarries in the States until the 1880s. So prior to the 1880s, tombstones were made out of wood, or they were made out of marble or limestone. There are even some grave markers here in Farmington, at the Oakwood Cemetery. There are grave markers made out of zinc. So I think they were probably experimenting with different substances. They even used the kitchen zinc. Now, some of these tombstones have symbols on them. You might see a symbol with a hand and a finger pointing like this. The Quakers were generally not known as basketball players or football players, so that doesn't mean that that person was number one. It was actually denotes the direction that person was headed after they died. You won't see any fingers like that. So generally speaking, everybody headed that way after they perished. There are other symbols on some of these markers that I wanted to show you. Two hands clasping very often meant friendship or love. You'll also see many markers have roses on them. That again is denoting love. That if an infant perished or a small child perished, you'll see a lamb on the tombstone. That denoted innocence. These gravestones right here say the word Botsford on it. Now, you're probably familiar with the Botsford name. The Botsfords were innkeepers. Well, Milton Botsford was an innkeeper, but Lemuel and Lucy Botsford were his parents. And the Botsfords' home is still with us. It's on the top of Farmington Road at 10 Mile. Now, as you come around here, you want to be careful of that marker right there. It's a hazard. You'll also notice that some tombstones will have markers like this on it, or symbols like this. A lot of people look at this and think it's a waterfall. This one is a book, which is a Bible. I'm sorry, the one that's directly behind me over there, which you can all see from there, is what looks like a waterfall is actually a weeping willow. Weeping willows denote sadness, and so the willow was used sometimes to denote the family members that buried him here were probably very sad. Here are some more markers that have symbols on them. Again, you see the finger, the hand with the finger pointing northward. Essex Brown was also, as the symbol on his tombstone denotes, he was a Mason, and he was also one of the leaders of the Masonic community. You'll also find many of these tombstones in this area. It seems to be rather sparse, actually, but that's mainly because this graveyard was not used as frequently as the Oakwood Cemetery, which was a much larger community burial ground. Some also felt that they didn't want to be buried with the Quakers because they weren't Quakers themselves. Now, as we walk past this area, you're going to see a combination of marble stones and granite stones based on the year of their death. You'll also find areas of family grave areas. And family grave areas usually have one headstone that'll have the family name on it. Here's a great example right here. It's the Lewis family. This is the Lewis family grave plot. And out in front, you'll see the names of Lewis family members. Right next to it is the Hake family. These are both granite gravestones, and that's why they look just like the day that they were actually installed. But what you'll also notice is when there's a family plot to be denoted, there'll be cornerstones found in the ground that will have the letter of the last name. So it denotes that this is the Lewis family gravestone, grave area. So for instance, if there was another Lewis family member that wanted to be buried here, they could, because this is the Lewis family plot. And as you can see by the emblem on the Lewis family plot, that the Lewis family was probably very involved in the Masonic order. You also find there's a lot of infant death. You'll find markers that the persons buried there didn't even make it to their first birthday. So you'll find that the whole of the Oakland County was surveyed in evenly sized, the same size or equal sized townships all throughout our county. In fact, our county is a perfect square. There's 5 counties, 5 townships across the bottom, and 5 townships up and down, making it a perfect square. Ernie Blanchard was a township supervisor. That's like a mayor. A township form of government is very different than a city form of government, where you don't have a mayor. You have a supervisor that kind of oversees how the township runs, and you have trustees. Our neighbor to the north is West Bloomfield Township, and it still, to this day, operates in the same fashion. The supervisor runs the day-to-day, and the trustees take care of the governance around the township. But Ernie Blanchard is buried here. He was a beloved member of the Blanchard family and also a township supervisor. Lillian was his wife. Lillian died in 1990. She died in California. She's not buried here, but her name is on the marker. So you're almost led to believe that her body lays to rest here. It doesn't. I think I heard that people are dying to get in here. Right here and right here was where these 2 markers were. But these 2 grave sites have an interesting story. These 2, this is Huldah Brown. Huldah was a Power. She was a daughter of one of the Power sons. She was the daughter of Nathan Power. And she married a man by the name of Philip Brown. But for some reason, the 2 of them would come to Nathan, her father, and in need of money. That Nathan lived in the meeting house because he didn't have a place to live. It was instructed that they were to be buried here so that they would be overlooked every time people would come here to this graveyard. They are not to be buried with the rest of the Power family. The rest of the Power family is over there. They are to be buried here, and they are to be buried nearest the fence line. because when people come to a graveyard to look for their loved ones or look for anybody, they generally walk up to the fence line and do this, completely overlooking them. If there are any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer. But I do want to thank you for taking a little bit of your time out to spend it here with me.